Hey, hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about the allegations that have been brought against the YouTube creator iNabber from his ex-girlfriend Krist. So all of this piggybacks off the allegations against I'm Alex. Please see my last video. I'll try and put that link. I think it would be up here. But iNabber was somewhat friends with Alex for some odd reason. I say this because I can recall iNabber exposing how toxic of a friend Alex was to him. But iNabber seems so hungry to be included in this friend group that he had even developed an idea for a podcast that would include Alex, himself, and some other people, and named it the E-Boys. Then Alex promptly stole the idea, the name for the podcast, and included the other people, but didn't include iNabber. And this is probably in addition to a whole laundry list of toxic crap that Alex did to iNabber throughout the entire up and down and tenure of their friendship. When Alex's claims came out against I'm Alex, other people who experienced similar things came forward as well against him. And several of Alex's friends actually spoke out too, condemning Alex and his actions. One of those friends was iNabber. iNabber made an Instagram post also condemning Alex and stating that he did not know that while he knew Alex was very toxic, he did not know the severity of what was happening between Alice and Alex. I thought it was going to be Alice and Alex. It's just like saying their names together is like really hard. But iNabber said in his Instagram post he didn't even know that they had broken up until like several months afterwards. That's how out of the loop iNabber was with Alex's life. iNabber stressed that he really just had no clue what was going on, but he did not want to make this about himself. But obviously, being in a public friendship with I'm Alex, people were coming to him with questions. And at the end of his statement, he did ask that everybody give Alice support. Well, this set off iNabber's ex-girlfriend, Krist, or Christy. I believe Christy is her name because iNabber does call her that, and like there are screenshots that have her name as Christy in like a text, but she goes by Krist on Twitter, so we're just going to go with that. So Krist made a whole Twitter thread calling iNabber out, making the following and somewhat vague claims. One, that iNabber knew how terrible Alex was, citing false allegations against somebody named Charlie. I'm actually not sure who Charlie is though, because she doesn't really elaborate who Charlie is. So false allegations, already knew that. iNabber, she says, knew that these allegations were false because he told her that Alex was making false allegations. Krist went on to say that Alex was extremely toxic to iNabber. Yeah, we already knew this, but he put up with Alex because it benefited his channel. Specifically quoting that iNabber is a very calculated person. Manipulation and lying come so easy to him, it's disturbing. He is not the same, but not far different from Alex behind closed doors. Krist said now she is in therapy, working on recovering from this relationship. The way he treated her drove her to a attempt in June of 2023 while they were broken up, but still cohabitating, which that is not easy. She was diagnosed with chronic stress with continuing symptoms of hair loss, nausea, vomiting, insomnia, and migraines on top of any emotional distress that she was dealing with. Krist did say in the initial statement that she wouldn't be putting out a detailed statement because I would assume it would just be too hard to relive. And then she ends this Twitter thread with wishing Alice the best, as we all do. All of the women that came out against I'm Alex. Krist did also make a follow-up tweet letting everybody know that she wasn't stating that iNabber knew exactly what was happening with Alice and Alex, but that he knew that Alex was just toxic in general. Which, yeah, we already know that. There was no denying that. So there was a lot to unpack with this, as iNabber kind of actually really does come across as more of a wholesome YouTuber, way more than I'm Alex ever did, in my opinion. And to make claims that he's not much different than Alex while being extremely vague with what you're saying, given what's going around with Alex, one is going to automatically assume the worst. Combine that with blaming him for her attempt, that's very intense. To put your life on somebody like that is bold and not healthy. Other people are not responsible for your emotions like that, and that is really heavy to put on somebody to bear. That's a heavy burden. But I mean, they were living together after a breakup, so I can understand having dysfunction with your emotions in that time. Not really sure how old either one of these people are. Anyway, Kris says a lot in her Twitter thread without actually saying much. She was vague about things, causing people to jump to conclusions, and obviously, at first glance, it's very damning. Well, Einaber was very quick to respond to her allegations in the form of a Google Doc. We have another Google Doc. I get it. It's easy to use and to share. There's just so many Google Docs. This is not going to be the only one in this video. So in this first doc, because like I said, there will be more, he quickly shows both her tweet about himself potentially knowing how bad Alex was, but then her backtracking tweet, as he calls it, saying she wasn't saying that he knew how bad it was, just that he knew Alex was bad. And I never highlighted a tweet that I had actually forgotten about of Kris, where she said she was coming forward with her story because I never made Alice's situation about him, which is in turn what she has done as well. Einaber does admit that his friendship with Alex is or was toxic. I don't really think they're friends anymore. And through all of their public breakups, he is embarrassed that he didn't cut Alex out a long time ago. Yeah, I would be too. He goes on to say that he only remained friends with Alex because he was concerned about his well-being. But they weren't actually that close, and it always was still kind of toxic. Even when they just literally walked dogs together, that's all they did in their friendship. Einaber does debunk Kris' claims that being friends with Alex helped him in any way professionally, though, because Alex already wasn't really well liked by the time he started dating Kris or even met her, and he includes several screenshots from his channel and Alex's channel, and apparently they haven't done any collabs on either's channel during his time with Kris, maybe a couple podcast episodes, but he asks like, how would he benefit from this if they don't really work together? He does admit that many saw him as an idiot for staying Alex's friend, and I kind of always thought that too. Not that he was like an idiot per se, but I always felt like Einaber was probably a bit of a pushover and a people pleaser to his own detriment. Then Einaber dives into her more serious claims. He explains that they did move in together rather quickly. Both of them are always really vague about why this had to happen, but it was because of some personal issues of Kris' like living situation at the time, implying that she was maybe unsafe or that it wasn't emotionally healthy. Eventually they got a larger place, and when they broke up, they did live together for a period of time, as he didn't want to kick her out and make her homeless because he's a nice guy and a bit of a pushover. He had kept a previous smaller flat that they lived in together before. He kept it for recording and filming purposes, so he actually had 2 flats. And in the flat that they were living in, this was a 2-bedroom flat, and it also had his in-home office. But then after they broke up, he gave her the bedroom, and he either slept in an air mattress on their studio in this studio flat or on the couch in the office flat. I'm sorry, why do you even have an in-home office at this point? If you were already having like a totally separate workspace that isn't far from where you live, converting that office into a bedroom and moving all that office equipment to your work flat would have been the best thing. So you actually had a real functioning bedroom to go to. Would have been like more mentally healthy. I don't know, just the whole thing didn't make sense to me. It was weird. That's just my hang up on that. At one point, he did offer to help her get a new place, to help her move out, like help pay rent and everything, possibly down payment. And she turned him down. Like, he was going to literally be on the hook for paying 3 places. I need to really step up my YouTube game. Get ready for 5-hour videos, everybody. I'm just kidding. I would probably lose my voice. Also, like, side note, that's a lot of workplace calculation to like put into taxes. Obviously, I don't know what British taxation is like at all, but it would be really complicated here, I know. Einaber focuses on Kris' claims on her attempt of June of last year. Einaber makes it clear that he is not saying that this didn't happen, but that he couldn't find any evidence in like any other messaging that it did. So he doesn't remember any of this. And he does show texts of when he does searches for things that would, words and phrases that would be related. Nothing comes up. He also does include their texts from that time. A large chunk of them actually reference a love letter that Chris had left for Einhaber after they broke up. And he expressed to her in this text message that he read it, and while it was very sweet, he was sorry they were over, but it was best for, the both of them. And she, in response, told him that she really wanted to try and make them work. So potentially that could have been her end of life note, but didn't make it clear that that's what it was in the note. But he doesn't seem to remember any of that happening. Einhaber also clarifies that she did work for him. She did do research for him. He did pay her. Sometimes he would pay her early. And at this time, he did also have a lot going on. His father had a stroke. He had lost another friend too. So he basically had zero mental capacity to work on this relationship with Chris at that time. He does show more texts where she would send lots of messages saying that she loved him, she missed him, ask if they can talk, repeatedly messaging, asking if they can talk, her feelings. And he doesn't really respond until she point blank asks him to respond. He states it's not a good time for them to talk. At this point, I think they're still cohabitating, but she is so insistent on her feelings for him and that she's self-reflected, but he shuts all of it down. Then he tops it off with her asking him if he didn't have sex with her anymore because of her weight gain. And she was worried because they hadn't had breakup sex. And she was worried that was because of her weight gain too. And she was worried that she wasn't attractive. These screenshots, honestly, that he posted in his first Google Doc are a little unhinged, begging Einhaber to tell her if she's not attractive anymore. He said all these messages made him very uncomfortable, and they put a lot of pressure on him because he was going through a lot mentally already. And with outside stress and medication and the fact that their relationship already wasn't working well, he had zero libido. It's also a weird to expect breakup sex from somebody, in my opinion. That's not a mandatory thing that happens when a relationship ends. And it's a super weird statement, and I get why Einhaber was uncomfortable. He then shows texts from that time where she discusses going off of birth control due to hormones affecting her emotions. Einhaber shows this specifically to show at that time she was blaming her emotions on medication and not on him. Shows more texts from this time where they were trying to be friends. So they broke up, still live together, but they're trying to be friends with each other, that sometimes people do afterwards. And there is no mention of the suicide attempt or blaming it on him. And at the time, she's still also kind of professing her love to him. The amount of texts that she would send were just overwhelming. Einhaber says these texts show a different side to her claims of that he's not that much different than Alex. And during this time, he did actually suffer a mental breakdown over the stress of them still living together. And he did also develop high blood pressure from the stress, so she's not the only one that has physical ailments from the relationship. This relationship sounds terrible. They both came out physically and mentally scarred. Wild. Towards the end of the relationship, Chris exhibited a lot of jealousy and they fought a lot, but Einhaber is firm that these were just normal conversations that couples would have in the situation that they were in. So they were not toxic, crazy fights in any way. And then after her staying at his place for 8 months, when he told her that he needed her to come up with a move out date for him, and he offered to help pay rent, she refused, stating that she didn't want to be financially dependent on him for a place to live. Girl, you already are in this apartment. He's paying all the bills. And he doesn't even really have a bed to sleep in at this place, which is kind of his own fault. He could totally have done that. If he can afford to pay for 3 apartments, he can afford a bed for one of them. Anyway, before he ends this Google Doc officially, he does respond to a TikTok that she also posted saying that he would lock her in the room for hours. This would be while he is filming, and yeah, he does film some long videos, anywhere from 3 to 5 hours. So that is a long time for someone to be quiet. I also totally understand the struggle of filming in a shared living space. That is why I try to film when no one's home, but if they're home, I just ask that they be a little quieter. And if they use the bathroom, I just pause what I'm doing, but I do ask that they go before I start to film. But really, I don't feel like it's right to ask somebody to not use their bathroom in their own home, especially when you're making a 5-hour video. That's insane. I can kind of see both sides. because it is hard to film, but you also can't expect people to. I feel guilty like asking my husband not to do things. Like, he's actually here right now, and he did use the bathroom before I came down here, and I told him a time frame, and he's just watching a 2-hour podcast. And iNever does have anxiety filming while others around when they can hear him, and I can totally get that too. It is weird knowing that there are other people around and that they're listening to you. Like, my husband is home right now, and I know he can hear me, and that is weird. But what can you do? iNever ends this with, these claims are lies. He never prevented her from leaving a room. He never locked her in it. He did ask that she be quiet while they film, and I guess they had 2 bathrooms, so he just wanted her to use the one that wasn't right next to the filming area. So it seems like she's just kind of twisting truths and then throwing in some lies about all of this. They do always say the best lies are always wrapped in a bit of truth. And then once that went up, it became the battle of the Google Docs. It truly kicked off. As Kris, she finally moved her claims from Twitter to her own Google Doc. And she said she wasn't going to do a detailed statement. I guess she felt forced to. I'm not sure. In response to that, iNever released another Google Doc. This one was over 80 pages. My head was literally spinning. And it became just basically a back and forth of 2 exes happening in a public forum for us all to spectate over. So instead of going over each one of the docs, I'm just gonna kind of highlight and compare each of their sides and stories, because honestly, if I did react to both of them individually, that would take forever, because like I said, iNever's is over 80 pages long, and I'm not gonna lie, it was so long I fell asleep a couple times trying to read it. Both spend time clarifying things that the other said, and it really did turn into a he said, she said. She saw something one way, he showed it being another way. He showed her begging for him back, she showed him begging for her back. And it quickly became clear comparing the two that this is not exactly what Christy made it out to be. There was new back and forth about iNever's dog Kenji, who apparently developed some food aggression and then just regular aggression kind of out of nowhere. And for the most part, it seemed like Christy was on the receiving end of this. She did include some very graphic images that came from Kenji attacks, and honestly, her accounts of these attacks are kind of traumatizing. And I know she at least went to hospital once. I think she went to the hospital maybe twice. The last attack that sent Kris and then iNever went with her to the hospital for treating her wounds, and they were both tweeting while they were there. In Kris' doc, she tried to make it seem like he didn't care. He was more upset about Kenji, and he was just tweeting while she was in pain. But then iNever shows that she was also tweeting, and his tweets were because people were asking what was going on, and it was his dog. There have been other incidents before this where, like I said, I think she did have to get medical attention, and there was a really scary incident where Kenji would just like not let her move off of their couch. Because of previous incidents, they had already been working with a behavioral trainer, and they were seeing improvements with Kenji. Kris claims that iNever would then like backtrack on the results by doing things like letting Kenji on the bed, which he wasn't supposed to be doing, to create like human pet boundaries. iNever then showed proof that Kris would also do the same thing, posting pictures of Kenji on their bed on her socials and stuff. So while Kris wanted to put the sole blame on iNever, they both were actually kind of guilty with being lax in Kenji's training. With the last attack on Kris, iNever was upset about the potential of having to have Kenji put down, and he's lucky because here in the US, animal control probably would have not let him make the choice. They would have made the choice for him, especially considering like the severity of her wounds and the fact that this has happened a few times. iNever in no way denies that any of this happened, nor do I believe that he downplays the severity of it. Kris does hold against him that she had to speak to the vet about the possible euthanasia of Kenji, but iNever says it's because he asked her to talk to the vet. He wanted her to give her story like a victim impact statement, because he felt like it would be more impactful hearing what exactly she'd been experiencing. So that way it wouldn't seem like maybe he is downplaying it and he didn't want to leave anything out. So when they went to the vet gave them the option of the euthanasia or a very intensive behavioral training with the potential of finding a family after if iNever did decide to rehome Kenji after this training. Einaber says that this is the day that they broke up. He had roughly 10 minutes to decide what he wanted to do, if he wanted to have his beloved dog put to sleep, or if he wanted to give him another chance at being a good boy and going through training, and potentially, even if he doesn't get to come home with Kenji finding a new forever family. He decided to go with the specialized training for Kenji, and this angered Chris, and they broke up, but then still lived together. There are new claims of Chris that Einaber claims are flat out lies, like that he tried to coerce her into having sex in a spa, which I think is a hot tub. Spas can mean so many things nowadays. He confirmed that all other parts of the story that she told are true, but he knew that they were being filmed, so why would he push for that? Or the fact that she was incredibly insecure about gaining weight, and the cause of their lack of intimacy was due to comments that he had previously made to her saying that he didn't find fat people attractive and that he would break up with her if she gained too much weight. Einaber says this is extremely bizarre considering his own issues with weight, so he doesn't really know where she got this from. Honestly, it seems like a lot of things have been misconstrued by Chris. Chris would show things in her doc, like a couple texts, she would make a claim, and then Einaber would show more of their text, more of that conversation for context to see what their banter was like. Einaber does also clarify timeline stuff a little better with some texts that are shown into relation to certain things to Chris' claims. And then he shows text with other people where he will be talking about the fight that he had with Chris. And at least in a couple of them, it seemed like it came down to a misunderstanding. And she would highlight these fights as like huge turning points in their relationship, whereas in like text between Einaber and other people, to him, it seemed like she had moved on, even laughing at some of these misunderstandings. So I can understand his confusion, but he does also say sometimes people can reflect on things and see things differently. Hindsight's 20/20, but he still sees it the same. I also found something confusing, like them like leaving the place that they were staying, if they were staying at a hotel or they were like leaving their apartment. Like each one of them was like coming and going and like leaving because they thought the other one wanted them to leave, but then they didn't. I don't know. And some of the timeline stuff is confusing as well, to be honest. And then when it came to the confinement stuff, Chris experienced was shown to be another miscommunication, or actually like I would say a complete lack of communication. And Einaber showed texts that she wasn't even like that upset about it as she was in her TikTok and in her own Google Docs. Or his reasoning for them getting a bigger place, he said it's obvious that they got a bigger place because now it's 2 people and a dog and they need space for themselves and stuff. So he wasn't really sure why she claimed that he wanted to get a bigger, nicer place to flex on his friends and the internet. They do also go back and forth about her finances because she claimed that she came into the relationship with a savings of $12,000, and he claims that he paid all of the bills. And in the time they were together, she had bought a new computer, she bought other expensive equipment, and he was totally fine with that. I mean, it was her money, she can spend it how she wants, but he doesn't know why he's getting blamed for that. Honestly, all of this is just a big pile of nothing, a big nothing burger. Really, it's just a relationship that's run its course and turned toxic at the end, which most relationships, when they're at the end of their leg, they do turn toxic. And like so many relationships that end, especially toxic, it becomes a very he said, she said situation with each one having different feelings about their time together. I will say though, Chris claims Einaber is just as bad as I'm Alex, and from everything that we have seen here, that is just, it's not the case at all. Einaber at most is maybe not like the best dog owner. I mean, not that he's a bad dog owner. It's just sometimes it's really hard to put in the work and be very disciplined because they are like children, and you got to discipline children too. And maybe at times a crappy boyfriend. I don't know. We didn't really get insight into what things were like when they were like happy together. But it also doesn't really seem like Chris was like an amazing girlfriend either, so I can't really fault either one of them. But none of this is even remotely close to the behavior of I'm Alex. So all in all, I feel like this, like I said, was just a big nothing burger. I'm not sure if she wanted clout. I think she felt like she had been wronged by the end of their relationship. And maybe in reflecting in some things, she thought, I don't like how he treated me there. I don't like this. And maybe some of it did get blown out of proportion a little bit. Maybe her brain added some extra things, or maybe his brain removed some extra things. I don't know. Here's the thing. There's always 3 sides to every story. There's his side, her side, and then there's the truth, which sometimes, sometimes anyway, lies completely in the middle unless somebody is just flat out lying. And a lie is always wrapped in a little bit of truth. So when he corroborates like 95% of her story, except for this one little part that makes him look bad, it makes me wonder if that is just a little lie that slipped in. But I don't know any of these people. I have not talked to any of these people. I do not want to talk to any of these people. I just have been observing this, watching along for a little bit. And of course, after the I'm Alex video, I had to add this little compendium. I don't know if that's the right word for what you would call this novella. This video might end up being longer than the I'm Alex video. Anyway, that is it for today's video, you guys. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I didn't say that at the beginning of the video. I didn't say my intro at all. I'm still trying to remember how to YouTube. Anyway, I will see you guys in my next video. Laters. Bye.